So we have these two new yarns from Noro that we've been waiting for forever and ever, and they are just beautiful. I promise you that when they come in stock, they will be worth the wait. And I've had a chance to swatch both of them, and I want to just show you. Let me give you kind of an overall of the two yarns and then show you what they look like when they're swatched up. So the first one is Saiun, and this is the ball of Saiun. This is a kind of a light worsted weight. It says that it's good on a US 4 to a US 8. And the composition of this one is 70% wool and 30% polyamide. Put in there 4, I'm not sure. Typically people add polyamide for strength and a little bit of gloss maybe instead of silk. But it does, I'll tell you, in the knitting, feel kind of woolly. But then when you block it, it's so much softer. It's beautiful, beautiful soft once you block it. So yeah. So that's Saiun. And the second one is Rittou. And this is Rittou. And Rittou is a little bit of a heavier weight. It's more of a solidly worsted weight yarn on a US size 7 to 8. And the blend on the Rittou is 70% wool and 15% each of mohair and silk. So it's similar to maybe a silk garden, but it doesn't have quite the same texture as it, because it doesn't have the same amount of mohair in it. But they're both really, really beautiful, beautiful yarns. So I want to share with you the swatch that I did. So I swatched the Saiun first because I just thought the colors were so beautiful, and I wanted to show you sort of how the colors move, and I also wanted to show you how different it looks on the different needles. So you think Noro, so I see polyamide is plastic. Well, actually polyamide is really more like it is a plastic. It is a man-made substance, but in the same way that you can have microfiber versus acrylic, you know, there's all kinds of quality of polyamide. You know, I don't think that it's necessarily being downgraded. I would love to hear what Noro has to say about it, but I think the quality of polyamide that they put in there is pretty high. So let me show you this swatch. Excuse me. So this is where I started. So I don't seem to have my second camera. I'm going to try that one more time. So I started with this on a US 4 because that's the smallest size that it says to use. So a US 4 is the smallest size. And I just kind of went up. This is a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'll tell you that knitting it on the 4 is definitely much, much stiffer of fabric. Now this piece has been blocked, so it's not nearly as stiff as it was. But obviously as you go up, it gets a little bit more more loose. I'm feeling like JFK Jr. here. Something in my throat. I'm just having an overall bad evening tonight, aren't I? But I think the thing that's really kind of interesting about it is the way the colors shift. So look at that. You've got a little bit of that hot pink in there. And this is not a very wide swatch. So you can see that the colors shift pretty quickly. So we go in from that pink and purple into this royal purple for an inch. And again, as I said, this is not a wide swatch. So the fact that the colors are shifting after an inch means that you're going to get a pretty fast color shift in your fabric. But I love the way the little bits of color from the upcoming color kind of blend in there. I think it's very beautiful. And the color shifts are pretty dramatic. All of the shades in Saiun are kind of bold. They're very much jewel tones. Yeah. So I did want to, address some of these comments that we had here about the polyamide. I know that polyamide and acrylic and all of this nylon, it gets a bit of a bad rap when it's added to a yarn. And I will say that I don't believe that Noro has any problem putting expensive fibers into their yarn. They don't shy away from silk in their silk garden or any of the other kinds of things. They'll put cashmere in there. So I don't know that it's really a cost-cutting measure. I will tell you that Noro is very careful and very intentional about their fiber blends. So if the polyamide is in there, it may have something to do with the dye. I really don't know, and I don't believe they're doing it just for cost savings. I think perhaps they wanted to see if they could make it a little bit softer, certainly a little more durability. It's like when you have nylon in a sock yarn, certainly makes it more durable. I really couldn't tell you because I am not Noro and I'm not privy to those kinds of decisions. But the idea that they're just downgrading or cost cutting isn't really how I see it. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but I think you would have to look at the brand as a whole and see that the fibers that they put in there, they're not shying away from pricier fibers. So anyway, yes, Susan says, in Europe, polyamide is nylon. I believe the word nylon is patented. Yeah. So, like I said, there's all kinds of reasons that we might have nylon or polyamide or any other man-made fiber in there. Sometimes it's used to lighten the fiber. Again, durability. Sometimes it's for the way that the yarn takes the dye. I don't know. I'm not an expert in fiber composition, but I do think it's beautiful. So the gradients, they do flow well. The colors are just lovely. Yeah, the color shift is really, really nice. Let me share that again. So yeah, you really can see how nice it is. And that's, like I said, in a small-ish swatch, right? So let me show you the ball. You can see that the colors are moving fairly rapidly. And I think it's important to know how the colors are going to be shifting when you decide how you're going to knit this. So with colors like this that shift so rapidly, you want to be careful that the effect that you're getting is what you want. Like if you were to knit this in a fairly large garment in the round, you would get a very tiny, maybe not even a whole stripe around of that purple color. Whereas if you were doing a scarf or a shawl or something with short rows or even something in tarja, you might have a larger, more impactful bit of that purple color. So very pretty. I think it's a gorgeous set. And I did also want to share with you the color palette for these beautiful yarns. So this is, normally, you know, I would be showing you the individual balls and we'd be going over it and you could see it, but this is what we have to work with right now. So as you can see, color 1 is this beautiful, you've got some grays and purple. This to me looks like a sunrise. You know how in the morning the sky is really purple, and then, you know, at the top, and as it gets red, that to me, and this looks like a night sky. I just think that they're lovely, lovely colors over here. Yeah. Color 3 is very vivid, very orange and purple, just really, really pretty. Susan has a question here. Short repeat would suit crochet. Yes, absolutely. And does it drape? Yes, I would say that it drapes really nicely if you use a larger needle. And we will get back to that question. Let's have a look at all of the colors because they really do have a beautiful, beautiful palette. So that's the first set of colors, and then they have this sort of second set. This color 8 is very reminiscent of 373 in Noro Silk Garden, which was very popular. This with the red and yellow is nice. Color 11, of course, is what I am showing you. Very pretty. And then this, number 12, is what I call an example of knitting with Noro being like mining for precious gems, because you're going through all of this gray and this kind of drab, and then you see, oh, there's this lovely vein of amethyst, and you just want to keep knitting until you get to that spot and get to see that. So those are the colors. I don't know that they are posted on the website yet, but here they are. So happy to share those with you. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was this other one. Let me get back to here. Okay, there's me again. I always get on camera at least 15 minutes early so that I can check everything and make sure that everything is good. And I always check, I always test my mic, and everything was fine, and then it wasn't. So I apologize for that. But yeah, so that is Saiun. And to answer Carol's question, do they have suggested patterns? Yes, they do. This is used in the cover design for the current issue of the Noro magazine. And Noro magazine has really taken the place of all other pattern collections for Noro. That is where the patterns are going to be. Now, independent designers can absolutely design things and put them on Ravelry or sell them wherever. But as far as an official set of patterns or collection from the Noro distributor, Knitting Fever, that is going to be exclusively in the magazine. And I think this season's issue is particularly nice. Like I said, the cover design is a beautiful mosaic wrap that uses one skein of each of the 2 new yarns. There's a sweater in there that I believe uses Saiun and maybe Malvinas. There are several really nice designs in there. But given that Saiun is like a light worsted, you could use it for almost any of the other designs that you would find in one of the Noro magazines. So anytime that you have a pattern or a yarn, go and look and see on Ravelry what other Noro yarns are about that gauge. And you can certainly substitute it for that and get a bunch of older patterns that would look still really nice. And I did a video on some of the patterns from before that are lovely. A lot of them are done by Jane Ellison and Jenny Watson. So really pretty stuff. Had a question before about does the Saiun drape? So any yarn, is going to have a greater drape. One, if it's on a larger needle or hook, and 2, once you've blocked it. So if you look at this piece here, you can see that here where I've knitted it on a size 8 needle, it has a great deal more drape and flexibility than it does here on the US 4. So I think it would be beautiful in crochet, right? Really, really nice. And we had a question here, is it softer than Ito? So I would say it is not particularly softer than Ito. It is similar to Ito and Viola. You know, Noro is not really known for its softness in its wool-based yarns. It's softer once you block it, and it's definitely lighter than Ito. So the yardage on Saiun, I think I have my glasses on this because I didn't memorize this. So the yardage on Saiun is 450 meters. So 450, that's almost 500 yards in 150 grams. So it is definitely lighter than Ito, much lighter. It's lighter than Viola. So it's closer maybe to the gauge of a Silk Garden Light. It gives you the color shift that you get and that you love in Ito in a lighter weight yarn. So I would put this probably in a DK Light worsted family, right? The colors look so familiar. Yes, like a Noro Greatest Hits lineup. Yes, absolutely, Susan. I am with you right there. I have loved Noro for a very long time, and I've carried it in the shop for 20 years. So you know, you have seen in the Ito line, you see favorite colors from Kurion or Silk Garden showing up in there. I know exactly what you mean. It's kind of fun, I think, like almost like a remix when a current group or artist remakes one of our favorite songs from the past. Okay, so enough about Saiun. It isn't my favorite. I just had more time to knit with it. But Rittou is also very, very lovely. The colors are a little more subtle. And the swatch that I did is a little bit smaller. I was just a little bit out of time, but I want to show it to you also. So here is the Rittou swatch, and this is I did this on the smallest needle that I dared. This was a US 5, and then I went to a 7, and now I am working on an 8. Now this has inherently less drape than the Saiun, simply because it's a heavier weight yarn. This is recommended on a 7 or an 8. I believe that if you wanted to get more drape on it, you could get a nice fabric on a US 9 at maybe 4 to the inch. But the colors are much softer. If you look at this particular skein, this is just, you know, the most classic blue and cream and tan. Any of you who remember this colorway, Susan, probably from the first Akari issue. This is very reminiscent of that. So yeah. And let's see. Comment here. Just remembers myself getting a scarf from my girlfriend. She told me having nylon in my scarf is super durable with my beard. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's fabulous. I would be interested in knowing whether the scarf against your beard pilled at all. Did you get more pilling? I know that my husband's dress shirts wear out at the collar because of his beard on his neck. So, I mean, he doesn't have a beard, but you know, his whisker stubble. So very funny. I love that. Okay, so as I said, Rittou is a little bit of a chunkier weight yarn. Ball Band says that it's happiest on a US 7 to 8 with a gauge of 16 to 18 stitches over 4 inches. And this has 330, so 330, that's like 360 in 150 grams. So closer to an Ito or a Viola gauge, right? But very, very pretty. So no pillings against the beard. Okay, too funny. All right, so let's look at the colors of the Rittou. So the colors of the Rittou are much softer and more muted. And I'm not sure, I don't believe that's because of the fiber composition, because this basically has this same fiber composition as Noro Silk Garden. And you know that Silk Garden has some very, very vibrant colors in it. I think they've just chosen to make this a much softer palette. So the yarn that I'm showing you is color 1. Color 2 is the same, except instead of this sort of toffee color, it has this blue. But they all seem to build on a little bit of a gray base, you know, and then has some little pops in it. Speaking as Susan was of greatest hits, this reminds me very much of wasn't last year? Was it last year? Just last year? Was Rika just last year? This reminds me of one of the Rika colorways, which was really, really pretty. So very, very soft, very different feel to these. You know, they don't have the rich jewel tones. They just generally look softer and a little more muted, right? See, they had even thought that they would be available November 13th, which they are not. So I am excited about it. I think, as with all Noro, when you swatch this yarn, you have to remember that the fabric that you're getting right off your needles is not the fabric that you're going to be getting when it is blocked. I always steam block things, so with a wet washcloth, making that steam on the fabric, it does a miracle job of softening the fiber and making it much nicer to the touch. Is either of these yarns a perfect right next to the skin fabric for somebody with very sensitive skin? Maybe not. But if you're able to wear Silk Garden next to your skin, then I think you would be fine with this. It also would be a very nice cardigan, or I have a silk layer that I wear under a lot of things that I don't want right next to my skin, and I think both of these would be beautiful in it, especially maybe this Saiun, because it is a lighter fabric. This would be a nice pullover, right? Don't you think? So I absolutely adore this Noro brand. I mean, really, that is Japanese gratitude to wear. Some yarns are really vibrant. Some, oh yeah, I love Noro too. I have a video that you may or may not have seen, kind of a love affair, a love letter, a love video to Noro. You know, people don't always get it, and I think the video is called Noro Yarns. Are they really that special? And I think really they are. I think Noro Yarns are very special. And if you love Noro, it's because you have accepted and bought in and adopted and really understand the Japanese aesthetic that Noro sort of personifies. They are not perfect. The spin is a little bit uneven. The texture is not processed down to something where it is really soft to the touch. The idea with Noro yarns, with these in particular and Noro yarns in general, the idea is that they maintain as much of the feel of the raw materials from which they are made as possible. So if you're working with a wool Noro yarn, the idea is they want you to feel and experience the sheep in that. So it's a sheepy kind of wool. So it's not going to be like an Italian merino. It's a very different animal, and knitting with it and wearing it is a very different experience, right? So yeah, so I think that these two new yarns, I'm excited about it. I'm disappointed that they're not here sooner. I wish they had been here so that I could have something on needles. But where I live here in the mid-Atlantic in Maryland, it is just now starting to drop below 55 during the day. So I haven't really been super excited about really warm woolly yarns until now. So if you were to start a Noro project in one of these yarns, you would be ready for, it would be finished and you would be ready for the winter weather when it comes in January. If you live in a place where it's already really cold, I'm so sorry. All right, so let's see. Thank you. That's so nice. So you did see the video. Good. Yeah, I'm kind of a Noro addict, and I think a lot of the folks that watch these videos are also Noro addicts. I try to share my love of Noro through, you know, the swatching and the garments and all of the stuff, but I think it's something that you really kind of have to knit with and have to experience to really kind of get it. And I think learning a little bit about Japanese aesthetics, the whole wabi-sabi and the shibui concept of taking the bad with the good and taking the bitter with the sweet and appreciating all of what went into the final product and appreciating the unevenness and recognizing that it is handmade and knowing that that's an important piece of it. So yeah, so as with all Noro yarns, I think Saiun and Rittou definitely embody the beauty of Japanese artistic culture and aesthetic, and that you will really love these when they come in. I have put together a Noro box. I started marketing that and making that available for pre-sale, I think in May. And the idea was that I was going to be shipping it in September when the yarn normally came in. As you know, the yarn still has not shipped, but so that means it's not too late to order a Noro box. I do have some available, and if you're interested in that, it's on the website. I'll put a link in the description below. But it's going to be really fun because you're going to get a skein of each of these new yarns. You are going to get a little tasting of each of the yarns that are featured in the magazine. You will get a copy of the magazine. You'll get a little a pattern that we're suggesting for these yarns, and you know, some other little fun things that are in there. So I'm excited about it. And if you would like to experience the Noro in that way, go ahead and order one of the kits. I think they're really fun. Oh, and in addition to it, I've included 2 skeins of a lace weight mohair silk. I wrote an article for the Current magazine that talks about why carrying a strand of lace weight mohair with Noro makes such a nice fabric. And I thought it would be fun to share that with the Noro box purchasers, so you will also get enough of that to work with a skein of your Saiun. So that should be super fun. Let's see. It might be my video. That might be another one that says, is it worth it? My video is entitled, Is It Really That Special? So yeah, you can have a look at that if you like. He totally was, Susan. You're absolutely right. Susan says Mr. Noro was ecological long before it was a thing. And I remember that was something that my rep told me. And I was so struck with it at the time I think I started carrying it in 2005, that Mr. Noro would not buy raw materials from a farm or a producer unless he had personally visited that place and seen how the animals were treated and seen how the raw materials were grown. So he was very, very careful about that. And the dyes that they use are minimally impactful, which is why there are certain colors that you just won't see in some Noro yarns, because they just take they're not available in the kind of dyes that he was willing to use. Now, you all know that he passed away last year, and his son has taken the helm, and he has very much followed in his father's footsteps with a careful attention to ecological concerns. I'm really hating this camera these days. It's really making me crazy. Decides to cycle power every half an hour. Anyway, so those are the two new yarns for the season. I wish I could tell you that they will be in any minute. Last time I talked to the folks over there, they said toward the end of November. So this is what, the 13th. So we have a couple weeks of grace. Next week, we are going to be looking at and going through the patterns that are in the Noro magazine. As I said, I think this is one of the better ones. I love most of the designs that are in there, and Ginny and I are going to be having a look at that. So until then, I hope that you keep knitting with Noro and create something beautiful and colorful. We'll see you next time.